The Chris Salcedo Show, part of Generation Blaze, only on the Blaze Radio Network.
Let's talk about where the outward appearance and where the law commingle, and let's talk about the law for a minute. Mazin Sbaiti, he brings over a decade of experience trying highly complex matters on behalf of a clientele including Fortune 100 companies, medium-sized businesses, family offices, and entrepreneurs. He's even represented several states' attorneys general to protect state interests in complex litigation. It doesn't get any more complex than this. Mazin, welcome to the Jay Severin Show with me, Chris Salcedo.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Let's talk about the law, and let me lay out the case for those maybe in other states who are not familiar with what's going on with the governor of Texas. There was a woman, a Tarrant County DA, Tarrant County, one of the more progressive counties in Texas, liberals. She decides to get behind the wheel 3 times the legal limit and an open bottle of vodka in the front seat. She's pulled over, she's arrested, and they have her on videotape acting like we're a prima donna. Hey, give me so-and-so. Hey, don't you know who I am? Blah, 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 blah. You know, a typical drunk. And this woman just happened to oversee a unit inside of the Texas state government that was responsible for $7.5 million taxpayer dollars. And a lot of folks in the state of Texas, including the governor himself, thought it not be a good idea to put somebody with an obvious lack of judgment in charge of an office like that. You know how liberals are, folks. It's all about them. So she refused to step down, even after she was booked on drunk driving charges, and the video came out, and the public had lost confidence in her. She refused to step down because really, Democrats like to flip the middle finger at the people and say, it's all about me, yo, whatever. You know what? I'm staying. Pay my salary. Screw you. That's what Democrats like to do. So, Mazin, here comes Rick Perry and says, look, I'm not going to veto funding for your department until you resign. And that brought the political pressure needed to get her out of office. Did Rick Perry violate the law?
It's actually quite a murky question on where the law really draws the line between an abuse of discretion like that. In terms of how someone might see this, it's really impossible to separate the background story that you just mentioned of why he was doing it from what he did, and that's really been the tactical difference, as you can see, in bringing the prosecution, is they want to strip away all the atmospherics that it wasn't him defunding something on a political whim. It was him using this to get rid of somebody who he thought, exercised absolutely terrible judgment, which is many of the commentators you mentioned, including David Axelrod, just figure that's how the veto power works. That's why it exists, is for the executive to be able to control the purse strings in that way. So, in terms of did he violate the law, it depends on how you describe the law, and that's a very lawyer answer. Okay,
I get what you're saying. So, are you saying this is all going to depend on how the trial goes?
I think this is going to depend on how the law is framed up before the trial.
What is the chance this thing gets thrown out?
Pretty good, I would think. I don't think any judge really wants to be within 10 feet of this. I suspect the judges are going to be looking for any decent enough reason to get rid of this case.
Yeah, and legally speaking, on what grounds could they do that?
If there isn't enough evidence, they could decide that the law wasn't violated, very simply that the facts as alleged didn't violate any of the precepts in the Constitution that are being cited. And that he was vested with the discretion, and that there's not enough evidence to show he abused that discretion. And that's where all the background facts are really going to come in to insulate Rick Perry in one of these types of prosecutions.
Mazin Sbaiti is my guest right now. He's a very high-powered attorney, has been involved in a lot of complex cases, including on the state level, state's attorneys general, and also for some Fortune 100 companies. So walk me through this. They're going to have to go, because you go from an indictment, because apparently I have heard you can get an indictment, you can indict a ham sandwich. I mean, it's that easy to get an indictment against something, because all you got to do is go jury shopping, and that's exactly what it seems what this prosecutor in Travis County did. Right. So now that they got the indictment that requires the governor to go take a mug shot and go through all this humiliation, which seems to be ultimately the goal, is to humiliate this guy and basically say, oh, yeah, he's got an indictment against him. Now, you say it's entirely likely that it's going to be thrown out. On what grounds, and talk to me in legalese, and then explain the legalese if you can, on what grounds do you believe this will most likely be thrown out?
Let's start with where the point you made, which is that you can indict a ham sandwich. And the reason is you really don't need very much evidence to get an indictment. You just need something colorable, that something might have happened. In order to get a prosecution really underway and to get a case like this all the way to trial, you're going to have to show that you have enough evidence to overcome the standard of proof, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high bar of proof. And given the way the law is structured and the murkiness of it, it's not like a speed limit. He either was or wasn't going over the speed limit. It's a question of, did he push his authority too far? And so the evidence has to be pretty clear beyond a reasonable doubt for him to be convicted. And a court can throw a case out if there isn't enough evidence ahead of time based upon a motion in a hearing. So that's why a court will have the procedural mechanism to be able to get rid of it. And I have a feeling there's not going to be the stomach to push this case that far, given that Rick Perry's going to be out of office so far. And as you said, they got their pound of flesh. They got the pictures that they wanted. It's pretty much damage done. And anybody really following what happened to Tom DeLay knows that, Rick Perry's even if Rick Perry were to get convicted, he's got two appeals in some pretty rational courts that are going to see it a little bit differently than an Austin jury.
Yeah, sure. But in the meantime, it ruins his presidential aspirations. So what is the timetable for this decision to be made, whether or not this thing goes to trial?
It could be as little as 4 or 5 months. It could be as long as a couple of years. It really depends on the trial court and the trial court schedule. And,
of course, the fact that he's a sitting governor, would that expedite matters, especially if he has national aspirations to be? I mean, because you can't hit the campaign trail to seek the highest office in the land with an indictment hanging over your head.
Well, that's right. Ironically, him being a sitting governor might actually be a basis to delay until he's not a sitting governor, but he may want it expedited. And he can ask for it to be expedited because he's the defendant. He's allowed to have a speedy trial. That's a constitutional right he has under both the federal and the state constitutions. So he could ask for it to be expedited to something much shorter if he wanted to. But
bringing politics into this, I mean, we're looking at about a little less than a year before those who are going to make a run for the Oval Office on the GOP side have to really start thinking about it. I mean, he's already been to Iowa 3 times. I mean, this guy, I mean, everybody believes he's going to make a run for the White House again. So, I mean, could this happen within a couple of months' time to where, and then what happens if it's thrown out and doesn't go to trial? Do the indictments disappear, or does Rick Perry have this label on him forever that he was indicted for this?
Let me take the last thing first. Yeah, sure. If it's thrown out, certainly the indictments go away, and he'll be able to say he beat the indictments, and he'll probably be able to raise that up as a badge and a flag of, hey, I beat the opposition that tried to use the criminal justice system as a political weapon. He's going to be able to get out of that. I think, I don't know, 2 months. 2 months sounds a little bit quick to me, but certainly 4 to 5 months is probably not unreasonable if he wanted it to go that fast. As the defendant. In terms of his political aspirations, I don't have that type of a crystal ball. I assume he's going to try to run. I assume he's going to get painted with this brush. Frankly, whether he beats the indictment or not, this is obviously something they're going to be able to label him with. Well, and it's all about preaching to the choir. One choir will believe he was always guilty, whether a jury says he was or not, and the other choir will believe he was always innocent, whether a jury ends up saying he was or not.
All right, he's the lawyer to Fortune 100 companies and to states' attorneys general all over this country. Mazin Sbaiti, appreciate your time here and expertise on the Jay Severin Show on the Blaze Radio Network with me, Chris Salcedo. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. More to come other side of the break, everybody. Don't go anywhere. We'll hear from Rick Perry coming up next.
The Jay Severin Show on the Blaze Radio Network.